Where's your iPad? It's my purse.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday. This is my boy Kevin Thornton. You have tuned in to the Wellness Architect Show featuring my co-host Lotus Riche. Happy New Year to everyone. This is our first show of 2020. I hope everybody had a great holiday season. A happy New Year. I hope we come into the new year with positive light, with the intentions of creating this to be the best year possible, mind, body, and spirit. I have an amazing show. We have an amazing show for you tonight. I'm gonna let Lois do
Okay.
the introduction in a minute. But before I throw it to Lotus, I want to say over the holiday season, I have gotten plenty of phone calls, text messages, emails about when are we going to do part two of the men's roundtable discussion. Men and women has been asking me when are we going to do part two of the roundtable discussion. We will have an answer for you sometime soon. I'm talking to Lois see when it's gonna be good for her to come back to the ATL or have her Skype in, but we're gonna make a date so we can all have this done because the women and the men has been asking. We had people from San Jose, Oakland, Cleveland, Detroit, uh, everywhere asking about the next one. So I thank you. We thank you for all the positive feedback, all the love that you gave regarding this that show. So we will have a answer for you real soon. But it will be in the month of January. So with that being said, we want to say thank you again. Without further ado, my lovely co-host, Miss Lois Riche.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back and Happy New Year to you. Thanks for joining us for another spectacular year that we're going to have here on the Kevin Thornton Wellness Architect Show. And just like Kevin, I have had a lot of people asking me about when we're going to do part two of the men's roundtable. And it is definitely coming up. Like Kevin said, we're going to get together and we're going to let you know. We're planning on it to be very soon. So if you have any men that you think that you want to come on the roundtable too, let us know because we're also going to have another part after that. So if you've got some phenomenal men that need to be on the roundtable, you need to let us know. Okay. So today, our word of today is dream. As you guys know, dream is a noun. And basically, what Webster Dictionary tells us is that it's a series of thoughts and images and sensations occurring in a person's mind during sleep. But it also says it's a cherished aspiration, ambition, or ideal, a person or thing perceived as wonderful or perfect. So, my word to you today is remember to always be yourself because when you are being yourself, you can do your best work. And your best work, like Les Brown said, is not that people aim too high and miss, is that they aim too low and hit. So you have to dream big. Don't sell yourself short and dream big. That's the word of the day. We're not going to keep you much longer because we've got a sensational guest for you today. She is none other than the author of The Pursuit of Purpose. She is Dr. Sandra Brooks. Welcome back, Dr. Brooks.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
I'm glad to be here. I'm really honored to be the first person for the new year. So thank you.
Well, you know, you did such a great job last year that we had to have you come back. And with all of who you are and what you do, um, having you on the show first will set the tone of how we want the year to be.
Okay. So I'm going to
Awesome.
piggyback on what Lotus was just talking about with the dream because I posted this earlier today and it was funny that I have notes everywhere. And I just happened yesterday morning to change purses and I found a whole lot of notes in my purse. And one of the things that I found is that a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. And a goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. And a plan backed by action becomes a reality. And so I love to tell people dream. Don't ever stop dreaming because those dreams have power and they have keys as to what your purpose truly is. So keep dreaming, but don't just let the dreams just go out into a void and die. Write them down,
Mm-hmm.
put a date to them,
Mm-hmm.
then start to break it down into a plan and then back that plan by action. Because the one word that I heard yesterday was that whatever it is that you put your hands to do in 2020, do it quickly. Don't procrastinate. Don't wait. Go get it. Do it quickly. So that goes kind of into, I guess, what we want to talk about tonight.
Yeah. Go for it, ladies.
Okay.
I'm
So
following the ladies' lead today, so.
powerful man to follow lead. That's great. Thank you, Kev. So this evening, we wanted to bring Dr. Brooks back on with us to share with all of you some things that people have been sharing with us. A lot of people have been saying that in the transition from 2019 to 2020, a lot of the problems that they're still dealing with is having anger and bitterness for some occurrences that has happened in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to give the challenge to Dr. Brooks and ask her to please talk to us about how people can overcome bitterness. And then we're going to segue into another topic that also came up. So, Dr. Brooks, would you talk to us a little bit about that?
Bitterness is an interesting subject because one of the things that I did back in 2008 was to speak with the women's group as they were bringing about their domestic violence program. And I basically gave my testimonies. And in it, as I was preparing it, one of the things that I figured out about me, why I was stuck in a rut, why so many things were occurring in my life, not the way that I wanted them, but there was a lot of abuses, there was a lot of backbiting. I had a lot of fear, a lot of anger, resentment. And one of the things that I figured out was that I was bitter. And I never realized that before. And that's one of the things with bitterness is that a lot of times we don't realize that we're actually a bitter person because we don't realize that we're still holding on to old resentments. We're holding on to anger. We're holding on to pain, to abuse. We're holding on to broken promises, dead dreams, and we have to let that stuff go. If we don't let it go, it eventually kills us. And one of the things that I said to the people that were there that day is that it's a force to be reckoned with because it has poisoned our spirits, but not only our spirits, that bitterness becomes a generational curse because it has affected us, it affected our parents, our grandparents, and now it's infecting our children and our grandchildren, and it keeps perpetuating itself. And that what has happened is that it's a seed that's grown inside of us and it has grown in layers of mess for years and generations, and now it's taken root. And one of the things that if you've ever gardened and you've had problems with weeds, weeds don't go away unless you pluck them up by the root. So one of the things is that we have to take an honest look at ourselves and we have to realize what it is. We have to take responsibility for what it has created in our lives because bitterness, and I know all of us have been in the presence of someone that's bitter and it's difficult to communicate. It's difficult to get them to change. It's difficult to get them to be agreeable about anything. And it's not that they're a bad person. It's that they're a hurting person. And that's where that saying comes from, that hurting people hurt people, because they do. But the thing about it is that we have to learn who we are. When we learn who we are, when we learn what it is that we are to do with who we are, then we know that we don't have to accept other people's opinions of us, because that's what happens, is that when people hurt us, when people say things to us, we start to accept their opinion of who we are instead of knowing who we are. And we don't want to change because we're familiar with the pain. We're not familiar with being in a pain-free state. And I say that because I know that there were times when there was so much chaos in my life that when I came into a place where there was peace, it was foreign to me. And I was like, something is wrong.
So I have a question,
Okay.
and that's great you brought that up, because I have friends that have grown up, and they've grown up in homes where there was a lot of dysfunction. And many times it wasn't because they were raised in a single family home. They were raised in a two-parent home. They were raised in a single parent home. They were raised by their grandparents. They were raised by the uncles or their aunts or whomever. But there was still dysfunction and chaos in the home. And then they became a byproduct of that. And it kind of goes in hand to what you're saying. If you are a byproduct of that, how do you overcome? And quite naturally, there's going to be some bitterness. So how do you overcome that? Because a lot of times people think that they can't go any further than from whence they've come. So how do they overcome it?
One of the things that I had to learn early on is that everything that I learned in my life was not good for me. And I came from one of those homes, and I remember when I went to college and I found the real term for it, that my parents were conflict habituated, that without conflict, they didn't have a relationship. It worked for them, but it didn't work for us as their children. And I had to learn that a lot of stuff that I learned growing up, because we all know our children learn from watching us. They don't learn from what we tell them. They learn from what they see us do. I had to unlearn. And a lot of us have to unlearn. And I think that we have spent so much time telling people that they need to change their mindset, that some of them really have not understood that that means that all that mess that you learned that it was not profitable for you, you got to unlearn and throw it away and start over.
So I've got a question for Kevin, because Kevin, he was brought up in a home with both his parents in the home. And I don't know, was there much dysfunction? Did you experience any dysfunction in your family? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Actually, I did not. That's the crazy part about it. I grew up in a pretty loving family, and so for the most part, my brother and I pretty much like y'all said, we imitated our father. So who we are as a man is as a byproduct of the actions that he portrayed to us. What I will say is I had a conversation today before I came here with a young man. Actually, you met him at the round table. And he's a byproduct of, the father not being present. And he pretty much said what Dr. Brooks was saying, that I'm like a mentor slash father figure to him. And so therefore, it's the he's more comfortable with the rejection
Right.
that he has received than the love that he receives from me. The love he receives from me makes him uncomfortable, but he's more comfortable in the midst of the pain, because he's gotten so used to being in the pain. So how do he get past that?
You know, one of the hardest things for me, when I came to the church, was to be able to accept people hugging me, because that was foreign to me. After my grandparents died, I don't think too many people actually hugged me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, because what happens is bitterness also causes you to be suspicious of people.
Yeah.
It causes you to be jealous of people. It causes you to feel guilty about things. You can't trust people in relationships. And the thing about it is that, first of all, you got to recognize it for what it is. You got to recognize what it's doing to you. And that is the hardest part, because that means you got to look yourself in the face and you've got to feel the pain that caused this. And that's hard for people.
Mm-hmm.
We have been taught that you medicate pain so that it goes away, that you actually do something to put a band-aid on the symptom so that you don't have to deal with it. But the only way that we can get cleansed from this thing is that we have to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to feel it. We have to acknowledge it. We have to recognize it. And then we have to turn our backs on it. And that's not easy. And it's not easy because most people aren't going to do it, and other people aren't going to recognize it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I notice in society today is that we don't think. And whatever the superficial thought is or the superficial reason is, that's what we accept, because it takes too much time and energy to dig deeper to find out what the root is. So then we stick a Band-Aid on it and it's supposed to be all right. People come into the church and we tell them just pray about it and everything will be all right after a while. It takes more than that. It takes a lot more than that. We can't hold on to our fears. We can't hold on to those unkind words. One of the things that I used to do, because when I was growing up, I'm heavy set. Some people say I'm fat. I don't care. But when I was growing up, I was a heavier child. And people would say things to me like, you got a really pretty face. If you would just lose some weight. You know, what kind of thing is that for you to say to a child? Because those words begin to resonate within your spirit. When I was 14 years old and stood in front of my parents' sink with a knife in my hand, attempting to cut my wrist because I knew that my teeth was crooked. I knew that my feet were flat. I knew that I was fat. I knew all these things about me. So anytime you told me that I was intelligent or I was pretty or that I was going to be successful, I looked at you thinking, no, you just lied to me, because that can't be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because all that pain and those fears and everything were speaking to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something today and it brought back a thought that I had before. It said, even your thoughts have a sound. Everything in creation has a sound. Your fears, all that pain, the unkind words you've been saying, the abuse, the anger that you're harboring, it all has a sound. And one of the things a guy named Paul David Tripp said, no one is more influential in your life than you are, because no one talks to you more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to change what you're saying to yourself. You have to, after you have acknowledged it and you've recognized it and you turn your back on it, so now's the time to start talking to yourself differently.
Right.
Where you can start saying, I am not captive to the pain that I feel. Everybody that I meet are not here to hurt me, because that's what the thing is. My defense mechanisms are up because I don't know what you're going to do to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a question. I've got a question because Kevin and I both are certified life coaches. We deal with people right now, basically all over the world, and we've traveled all over the world. And one thing I think, speaking for myself, is pervasive with people. People just want to be loved. They want to
Mm-hmm.
be heard, and they want to be understood.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like a lot of times we are beat down in
Mm-hmm.
childhood, and that brings on the bitterness that we are trying to overcome. And I know I meet a lot of women,
Mm-hmm.
speaking from a women's perspective, that the aforementioned is unequivocally true. And it's even harder because a lot of times they are forced to just go on and deal with it. And sometimes they don't get the help that they need because they're trying to be a mother, a wife, a sister, an employee who is a manager or a supervisor or just a team player or what have you. And I would venture to say that a lot of times the hurt and bitterness and dysfunction that they've dealt with along the way is left untaken care of. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's a wound with a bandage on top of it. And I know I've heard a million times those things from women.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even in the roundtable, we found that that was true of many of the men on the roundtable.
Absolutely. Can I say something real
So,
quick?
Kevin, what? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So, Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Um, you did excellent when it came down to the women. The men, uh, it was very obvious, and I had that conversation today because I saw 3 of the 4 men today, and I would say that they rewatched the show
Hmm.
and they said it was life changing for them,
Yes.
how they saw themselves. They saw that how obvious it was that they was in pain. So they really, one really is like proactive in trying to
Hmm.
create a change and create how he's changing how he see and speak towards himself. The other two, and this is where I want to throw it to Dr. Brooks. Um, they are they're aware they're in pain. They are aware they need to deal with the issues that cause the pain. The issue they have is with them being men and they've never been taught how to allow themselves to be vulnerable and allow themselves to feel. They're scared to allow themselves to feel. They're fearful of allowing their heart to break. To say fear of if they let their heart break, they wouldn't know how to put their heart back together. So how would you speak to them?
They can't put their heart back together because they didn't make their heart. One of the things about bitterness and all of these issues, whether it's male or female, is that it robs us of our voice, and we suffer in silence because we are afraid of what society is going to make out of it. All of my time that I've worked with abuse victims, and I spent a lot of time working with abuse victims, very few of them were men because of the persona that they would have to deal with if they took that mask off and they allowed someone to see their pain. The thing about that is that someone has to provide for them a safe place
Mm-hmm.
where they can be vulnerable. But in order to do that and becoming that safe place, you've got to be able to get them to trust.
Mm-hmm.
And normally that comes from someone that has been where they are and has gotten through, someone that can be a beacon of light in the midst of the darkness to bring them through to where they need to be. Because they can't move forward until they deal with what happened in the past. And they've got to bury the past and reconcile themselves to that history and then bury it so that they
And
can move forward.
yeah. And I just wanted to add to all of our viewers, something that I learned is that your story is your power. There are a lot of things in my past, just so much pain and just trauma. Even though I had both parents in the home, I grew up in a loving environment. There were things within the home and without outside of the home that caused pain and trauma. But what I learned is that when you get over the guilt and shame of being ashamed, okay, when you get over whatever someone has done to you, that have kept you captive, that has robbed your voice, as Dr. Brooks said earlier, and you learn to rise above the bitterness, your story becomes your power. So I encourage all of you out there, find a way that you can share your story in an effective way that would help to transform someone else's life while you're doing the same for yourself.
And let me say this too, because Kevin brought up the part about healing their heart. The one thing that we've not talked about in all of this is that there has to be a belief and a trust in a higher power than yourself, whether that's God or if that's an infinite creator, whoever that is for you. There has to be that relationship with that being so that you can find the peace and the strength to go through what you have to go through. I will say this from my own journey, it was very, very, very difficult. Because one of the things I say to people, and I'm going to say it again now, you have to feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Because the pain has a purpose. And it is that pain that is going to get you on the journey to where you need to be to get to your ultimate purpose and destiny. So you have to feel it. And that's not an easy process. But the only thing that brings you through that process is that relationship with that spiritual being that's going to give you strength. For me, it was the Holy Spirit. I don't know who it is for you, but that's what it takes. And once you have that, that being will search you and show you things that you didn't even know were inside you. There were places in me that this is what I do. I compartmentalize stuff. And so when I started to hurt, there was a place inside my spirit that was like a file room. And it had shelves with boxes, and all the boxes had these pretty ribbons on it. And when things would hurt me, or when I experienced disappointments or setbacks or failures, I had a pretty box to sit it in, and I would tie the bow and put it on the shelf and lock the door. One day, I had one pain too many. And the boxes started to explode. And I had no choice other than to start to face things that I didn't want to deal with. Things that caused me to be a person I didn't even know I had become.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until then that I had to lean on God. I had to lean on the Holy Spirit, because in my own strength, I could not have gotten through that. And I had to do that even before I could begin to trust people
Mm-hmm.
to even help me through the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Because until then, I was so hurt that I was numb.
Mm-hmm.
And you do know there's a level of pain where you're so numb that you don't feel it anymore until you look at it and you see it. And that's where I was. And I had to deal with that. And that's what jump-started me into my journey to begin to discover who God created me to be, to even get me to the point where I could be on this broadcast tonight. Because 10 years ago, you wouldn't have gotten me on here. I would have come up with every excuse under the sun. But I had to deal with all of that.
So I have a question, especially for guys that are listening out there, and the ladies, of course, but I'd like somebody to chime in if you would. And Kevin, I'm going to toss this question to you,
Mm-hmm.
because Dr. Brooks talked about the hurt being so numbing
Mm-hmm.
that she kind of forgot how to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you said, Doc? Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So when I heard you say that, I thought about how people become so far disconnected from their emotions
Mm-hmm.
because they're afraid
Mm-hmm.
of being hurt again, whether they've lost somebody in their life, because I just had a conversation this past week with a person that I know, and they talked to me in depth about how it was to lose their spouse, and they're still dealing with it after the spouse has been dead a couple of years. They were very much in love with the spouse, but it left a bitterness, a resentment, even though, they are connected to their higher source, the hurt and the pain, and they're afraid to move on. So I wanted to shoot this to Kevin and ask you, Kevin, do you see many men that, are so emotionally disconnected that they can't even have relationships, wholesome relationships with people?
Well, I will be completely transparent. I was one of those type of guys. I'm coming out of it now. Um, I was dating someone, when I was younger. This young lady I was dating, and I had got the job of my dreams. I had just got out of college, got the job of my dreams, and I was in training, and a young lady was attracted to me, and she was doing all kinds of things to try to get my attention, but I was focused on the young lady I was dating. Um, so the rejection that she received from me because I didn't pay her any attention, she took that and she tried to sabotage my career by accusing me of sexual harassment.
Mm-hmm.
So that call, I got out of it. However, that created a bitterness I had towards women, even though I was still dating the young lady I was in love with, and then I ended up breaking up with her, and then that caused more bitterness towards me. And then, so I got to the point where I was still date, but I was emotionally disconnected. I only attracted women that really didn't require too much from me. It was just have a good time and keep it moving. And then I had a relationship with someone close, dear to me, and kind of like disconnected. And this person was really dear to me, and the pain that I had with that breaking up really sent me to a place where it's like, okay, I can't trust no one,
Nobody.
no one, because the pain that I felt with that was too difficult. And so I didn't want to deal with it. So then I started going. I got coached. I got coached by Yana Van Zant and her team, Coach Pruitt, and I had to do this assessment. And so in my assessment, she named me Intimacy O2. So Intimacy O2 for me was not because of being intimate sexually, it's about being intimate with someone emotionally. And I was not that person that was emotionally connected to people. I became very distant. I became very emotionally unavailable, and it was not just in dating relationships. It became even in my personal friendships as well. Um, so once I started doing the coaching, and I realized that the the pain from those experiences has made me emotionally unavailable, and that my friends was like seeing me as being unavailable as well. I had to start doing the work. It was difficult, and I think uh, one of the things that I had to learn was I had to have a difficult conversation with my family member that I was really close to it, and that happened recently. And once I did that, everything was coming together. And so then I would say that I got tested. God tested me. He wanted to see what I have learned from doing this whole process of the journey, learning my love language, understanding that I can't be selfish in the love I give and also the love I receive. So I had to also understand that just because my love language was art, acts of service, and quality time, if Lotus's love language is affirmation and sense of touch, I can't give her acts of service and quality time and think she's going to receive the love language that I'm giving her. So I had to be just stripped down completely. So he brought somebody in my life to test me. Um, the person is completely, it's a friendship, but the person is completely different than what I'm used to, because I've always been the type of person that said I like independent people, who is not clingy, who doesn't require a whole lot because I don't want to give a whole lot. That was my reality. And this person is the complete opposite. Requires a lot, requires a lot from me that normally I would not give. So this was the challenge that God was giving me. And I know that if I pass this test, there's something greater coming on the other side. Um,
Yes.
and in that, I learned some things about myself. And what I learned was part of my personality, and that's also the defense mechanism, is I didn't allow myself to get too close to people because I want to have control of my emotions. And if you allow yourself to get too close to someone, you can't control your emotions
That's
because
right.
you're feeling.
That's right.
So, I, you know, he this in this test, in this journey, he's forcing me to allow myself to feel, and I can't control my emotions, which is it bothers me at times because it's still something that I'm getting used to. But I understand the dynamics of what's going on the other side. So I felt like I should have shared this because it's probably a lot of men like me who, 'cause we're not like women who are more expressive and emotional. So they talk things through. Most men are like me, and we keep it closed in. Luckily for me, I got coached and then became a coach. I learned how to use the principles, but most men don't do that. So most of them are like me, so they become emotionally disconnected. They tend, or they become like me, emotionally disconnected, or they just go from woman to woman to woman and not heal. So they still bring all the baggage from each other woman to the next woman and it's expecting a different outcome, and it's not going to happen like that.
But you know what? I have noticed with women, um, I don't know if because of the change in society that we're trying to mimic men,
Hmm.
but I'm finding more and more women who are finding it difficult to communicate their feelings as well. Um, and I think that what's happened is when I start talking about we've lost our voice,
Hmm.
that we don't have the words to express how we feel, and we don't have a safe place to do it.
Hmm.
Because if you begin, because women vent, and if you vent in the wrong place, the only thing you're going to do is add more pain, more heartache, more abuse, more issues to what's already there, and it's compounded. And so some women have gotten to the point, and this is where I got. I mean, I sat in a church once, I worked there, and I locked my door to my office and I covered up the window so you couldn't see in, and I turned the lights off. And I worked in silence alone every day. I ate by myself. I would go places in the church and hide. I know more things about that church. I can walk through it in the dark, and it's a huge building because I got to the point where it felt like no matter what I did, somebody was going to lie on me. Somebody was going to put a knife in my back. Somebody was going to do something to try to sabotage me. The problem with what I was feeling was that I was wallowing in my own sorrow.
Hmm.
And in essence, I was sabotaging myself. And that was one of those hard truths that I had to learn, because that's when I figured out how bitter I really was. Because the thing about it is that you believe the things that you begin to think about. And what you believe is what you say to yourself. And what you say to yourself is what you are ultimately going to bring into reality. And that's why we are today where we are, because of what we've thought and what we've allowed ourselves to harbor in our past. And at some point, it gets to a place where you get tired of sabotaging yourself. You get tired of being that dry bone laying in the valley in Ezekiel 37, waiting for a prophet to come speak a word so that you can live again. You got to get to the point that you got to say the right things to yourself. It goes right back to that quote. You talk to yourself more than anybody else. What are you saying to yourself? Because when you talk to yourself, nobody else hears. Nobody knows what you're saying to yourself but God. What are you saying to yourself? You know, I hid all my emotions behind a smile. And I used to tell people, if you know me, you will know my smile.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have different smiles for different things.
Yep.
And so, you know, I had to get to the point that I can't hide it behind a smile anymore. It's kind of frustrating because now I no longer have a poker face, because pretty much I may not say anything, but if you look at my facial expression, you know what I'm thinking. So, go ahead.
You know, Dr. Brooks, I agree with what you said. I think it was Yolanda Adams that sung the song "Battle Is Not Yours, It's the Lord's," and in that song, she starts off saying, "Sometimes you have to speak a word over yourself, and it has to be a positive word. You know, it has to be a word that can lift you up when everything else around you is falling down." And I had to learn a lot of the hard things that Kevin talked about, not trusting after being hurt or hurting someone or what have you. I had to learn to accept the fact that it was okay to move on and love someone else again. But it's so difficult because for me, the ability to trust has been challenging, very, very challenging. And it has moved me to a place where I've had to talk to people to say, hey, this is what I'm going through. I'm having trust issues. And before I would say, you know, it's because you don't trust yourself. But I realized that over time, it's not so much that you don't trust yourself, it's just that you don't trust the process. And I had to learn that when I was overseas. I had this one lady, she would always tell our patients when they would come into treatment, she would always say, trust the process. Miss Burns would always say that. And we all nodded, yeah, trust the process. But when I really started thinking about it, she wasn't just talking to the patients that we had, she was also talking with all the clinicians in the room, because we still had to trust our own process and had to learn to trust again, how to love again, how to feel again in many cases. So the fact of the matter is that just because we're clinicians or pastors or elders or life coaches or anything like that doesn't mean that we still aren't processing ourselves. And once I learned that, I was like, you know what? You got to trust the process. And it helped me to kind of move on, you know. But is there still some times when there's a challenge? Yes, there certainly is. So what can we say to people that are facing those challenges still today? How do they move forward?
That I included in my book. And
what book?
The Pursuit of Purpose. And one of the things, this quote came from Dr. Mark Sharona. And I use this quote because this quote really spoke to me during the time that I was going through this. And I'm going to say this, I was preaching and teaching and administrating and everything in the church while I was going through this process, feeling as jacked up as I was. And it was amazing that God could still use me. And a lot of the times that my question to God was, how can you still use me? But God can. And he took me when I went to teach this book in a women's class. And he made this one statement. He said, in the pursuit of my life's purpose, there will strategically occur a defining moment in the form of a refining crisis, setting me free from a confining limitation, thus empowering me to step into my healing my greatness, and ultimately my destiny. When I said that pain has a purpose, pain brings you into that defining moment.
Mm-hmm.
That one defining moment, it comes as a crisis. And that moment, according to what you do and how you respond, is either going to set you free from the limitations or
Mm-hmm.
it's going to help you die in the midst of the wilderness. And that is the key to a lot of stuff. It is a process. It really is a process. And what I say in my book is when you get to this moment where it empowers you to step into your healing, your greatness, and your destiny, it is empowering you to step into the process. Is the process easy? No. But at this point, you don't have those things that are confining you, that are limiting you. And
Mm-hmm.
what I found is that the limitations that it was causing were the limitations in my mind. As a man thinketh, it is mine.
Mhm.
So is he. Out of the heart, which is also the mind,
Mhm.
the mouth speaks. And the power of life and death are in the tongue. We're speaking death to our lives because of the thoughts that we have in our mind, because we won't submit to Romans 12:2 and renew our minds and change our mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
We have got to change the way we think. That is the key to everything. Change the way you think.
So how do we do that? How do we do that? Because Kevin, like I said, Kevin and I are life coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we have other expertise as well, and degrees in a few different things. But where would you tell the average person to start? Do they get a life coach? Do they go to a psychologist, a psychiatrist? Like, where do they start? My favorite book. Okay.
And I say that because, okay, let's just be real about it. I have done counseling with victims of abuse. I've worked with children who were abused and have emotional disturbances. I tell people I have worked with people from birth to death. Whether you get a counselor or a life coach or whatever, you still need to read.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You need to study. You need to start looking at something other than what you've been looking. And for me to say that I'm a minister of the gospel, I'm going to tell you something else. You got to read something other than the Bible
Mm-hmm.
because you don't understand it anyway. We have memorized things and not understood what
Mm-hmm.
they meant. We have built denominations around stuff that we don't understand. And we're holding people to things that we ourselves are not making ourselves subject to. So let's just be real about it. We have the Bible says study to show yourself approved. It didn't tell you what to study. Theologians don't just study the Bible. In Judaism, they don't just study the biblical text. There are other texts that has to do with the biblical text that helps you to understand what the text is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But when you pick up books like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, if you are in tune spiritually at all, you
Mm-hmm.
see biblical truth from page 1 all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And you begin to understand how faith works. Because for me to tell you that faith is the substance of things hoped for, that doesn't mean a hill of beans to some people. What does that mean? So we have to get people to a place where they begin to study.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things they need to study really well is themselves. Know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, Kevin asked me what I had been up to. I said, I've been writing. And I started one project and Lotus will tell you this. I've got so many projects in my head and written down on paper right now. It's going to take me 10 years to finish them all. But I started a companion book to The Pursuit of Purpose. It started out as a journal and a workbook, and it is going to be that, but it will be a companion called Pathways to Purpose, because it's going to take you through the work that you have to do on that journey. And it's going to make you look at some things. It's going to make you write some things. And see, that's another problem we have.
Mm-hmm.
God is giving vision, but how many of us are doing what we're supposed to do and write the vision?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's not written down, it's just a daydream.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be written down. And we've got to learn to do things differently than what we've always done them.
Right. Can I say something right quick, Dr. Brooks?
Yes.
I want to piggyback off of what you were saying. I believe, like when I coach people, I give them a list of books
Mm-hmm.
that I want them to read, because it's more than just me giving them the tools and assessments that they need to try to move forward. But I'm in big agreement with you that you have to also read books that's going to help change your mindset. And Think and Grow Rich is one of the books that I do have them read. And I also have them read his other book that I'm a big fan of, which is Outwitting the Devil by
Yes.
Napoleon Hill as well.
Yes.
Um, that's one of the big things. The second thing that you said too, for your companion book, one of the things that I have them do too is I had them create an empowerment vision, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's a vision of how they see themselves, for themselves, their vision for them, so health wise, spirituality wise, relationships, their career, their finances, the community active, all that. What's your vision for it? And the next question behind it is, what's going to be your first step that you're going to do
That's
to
right.
to go behind it?
That's right.
The hardest assignment I have given them that they feel that I think is the hardest for them to do is I'll ask them to write down 10 things they like about themselves and 10 things they hate about themselves. And the craziest part is they can ramble off more than 10 things that they don't like about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a hard time, at least give me 5 things that they like about themselves. So, I'm in full agreement to what you're saying.
You know what, Kev?
Huh?
I totally agree with you. There must be something going on here, some type of energy going on, because I had a session this morning with a client overseas, and that's one of the things that I told her to do as well. But the way I set it up was it's a daily affirmation. She
Mm.
has to look at herself every day and write down one thing that she likes about her externally. And she also has to write down something that she likes about her internally.
Mm-hmm.
Because what really happens is you loving yourself really starts from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people have been made to believe that it starts from the outside in, like what kind of clothes you have on, what kind of makeup you're wearing, how was your hair done, things of that nature, instead of saying, I'm a great person on the inside. I'm great with children naturally, or I'm great with elderly people naturally, or I have a kind heart, I have a kind spirit. We oftentimes are looking for the keys to the car on the outside of the car, because we think we lost them on the outside when the keys just fell right below our seat. So
Or
we can
either
never start
sitting
the
in the
car.
ignition. Sometimes they're sitting in the ignition. And one of the things that I do with my students is that they have to do a SWOT analysis of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it is always difficult for them to do the strengths and the opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
They can readily recognize what their weaknesses and their threats are. But when you start talking about strengths and opportunities, they have a hard time. And those are usually, and they only have to do 4 in each and then do a reflection afterwards. And some of them just can't even do the reflection because we have been so brainwashed. I think that's the best way I can put it. We've been brainwashed. And we've been told so much about what's wrong with us that nobody has bothered to try to empower us by telling us what's right with us.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I stress is that I don't want you to regurgitate to me what the book said or what you think I want to know. What I want to know is what you learned from it. I want to know what you're getting from it. I want to hear something creative from you, something unique to you, because each of us are unique individuals. And that's why I know that we need role models, but sometimes I think we idolize people and we try to become them instead of using their story to empower ourselves to be us. And so when we start to compare ourselves to other people, it's easy for us to pick out what's wrong with us based on this other person
Mm-hmm.
than to look at what's right with us based on who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so my whole thing is with the pursuit of purpose, learn who you are. I don't care about who this person over here is. Who are you? And the thing is, the question is, why did God create us? That's not the question. The big mystery is not God and the Bible. The big mystery is, who were you created to be?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because if you're here on this earth, you were here to answer a problem. And if you don't know who you are, then the problem goes unanswered. And if the problem goes unanswered, the entire world is suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So the question becomes, who are you?
Mm-hmm. You know, it's and that's very true. And in the pursuit of purpose, a lot of times you might start off thinking your purpose is one thing, and as you go through the journey, you realize your purpose is something completely different.
That's right.
And I still am big on health and wellness.
Yes.
In the beginning, I thought that was like my main focus and purpose. Um, but now I see that the whole personal development and the empowerment, especially empowerment of men, is where he's leading me to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it's a void, um, and like you said, you know, the men are looking for a safe place to have a conversation and not be judged, so they could feel a certain kind of way. And when I saw three of the young men that was here for I've seen five other people since the roundtable discussion. I know you watched Dr. Brooks.
Yes.
Um, they said that it was an amazing conversation, but they also felt like it was a therapy session for them,
Yes.
and that at first they were always nervous because they've never been did something like this before for the most part, but they said they could have talked for another 2 hours because they got to a safe space where they was able to feel and express how they was feeling and not be judged. And so that's where I realized that you know that's where God is leading me to, because it's a void there, and I've been fighting it because I wanted to control what I thought was my purpose, and I'm saying it's not just I can't still do that, and I can still no, but it's lead me into this, and because the men out here are hurting, and
Right.
and they're walking around in pain, and there's no one there to help them. And so it's funny because I felt some kind of way after that show. I was empowered and I was excited to see the effect on it. But then I also felt kind of bad for these men that's been walking around, because I had at that couch I had a 20-year-old, a 33-year-old, a 43-year-old, and a 50-year-old, all in pain. So I saw the three guys today and I apologized to them. I said that I'm not the person that hurt you, who abandoned you, but I do want to apologize to you because we as a community still failed you.
Right.
And,
Yes.
and that I wanted to let you know that we're not here to fail you no more. That we're gonna be here to support you and honor you, so that you could get past this and you could heal from this. And you know, it made them emotional. They didn't know how to take it, um, because they never had anybody express that to them, and they appreciated it, but then they couldn't understand why I apologized, and I had to tell them that because even though you don't have a father, you still have us as a community, and it's us as a community that had come together and help those who are in need, those who are in search of love or that father figure or that mother figure that they didn't have. So, and we did not do that for you guys. So it's up to us to, apologize to you and honor you and say we're not gonna fail you no more, and we'll keep on going from there.
That's right.
So
And
great. I wanted to quickly say hi to Clarice. Uh, they just joined us on our watch party. So I wanted to say hi, Clarice. Thank you for joining us. And we have a couple other folks on that's joining our live watch party. I want to say hi to you and thank you for joining the watch party. Thank you for joining the Kevin Thornton Wellness Architect Show. And if you have anything that you'd like to say or add on, please don't hesitate. Type it down below and I'll go ahead and read it out, and we'll try to answer any questions or concerns that you have. And if you just want to give out some great information, I'll go ahead and read that for you as well. Thank you.
one of the things I wanted to say that piggybacks on what Kevin was saying, being the single parent of a young man, that I remember the nights that my son had issues because his dad was not there. And he internalized that because he blamed himself for that. And it had nothing to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the last time that he saw his dad before he graduated high school was the day before his 6th birthday party. And his dad said, I'll see you tomorrow. And tomorrow didn't come until the day he graduated from high school. And the bitterness and the anger that he has suffered through that he still is dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff matters. And I know that when I say hurting people hurt people, we hurt our children. And so then it begins to perpetuate itself from generation to generation to generation until somebody stands up and says, stop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do this any longer, until somebody goes and gets the help like Kevin did and does the work, because that's something that Kevin said. I did the work.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And
it takes work.
It takes work.
Mm-hmm.
It takes having to fight yourself to come up against those things that have become habits that are harmful. It's just as difficult as losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's hard because in essence, you are losing spiritual weight, emotional weight.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to get rid of that stuff. And sometimes you got to think before you speak.
Yes. And you know what? This is why I started off this evening with to make sure we dream big, but first and foremost, you got to be yourself.
Right.
And when you're being yourself and truth, and the truth of who you are, no matter how pretty or how not so pretty it looks, it opens up the doorway for you to really dig deep and deal with those issues that you're maybe suppressing or repressing, that is causing the bitterness and that is causing you to lose your voice and not be able to speak your pain so that you can overcome the bitterness. And we shared here tonight, for those of you that may just be watching us, we have Dr. Brooks, the author of one of the #1 bestsellers in the nation, The Pursuit of Purpose. She's here with us tonight, and we're talking about how to overcome bitterness and how you can regain your voice so you can also use your story as your power, not just to help yourself, but to help other people as well. And so again, we want to say thank you for joining us, and we want to welcome any questions, anyone that wants to share something, especially the men that's coming on, because Kevin has shared with us about how powerful and effective the roundtable was for the men that we did a couple of weeks ago, but also that many of our men, they are not, or they don't feel a sense of freedom to
Mm-hmm.
feel vulnerable as men to
Mm-hmm.
share their emotions.
Yeah.
And of course, we see that with women as well, but oftentimes many women, we have a sense of being able to say, okay, what's really going on, and sometimes we can pull it out of you.
But you know what, Lotus, to piggyback something that Miss Dr. Brooks said a while ago, and how now some of the women are starting to be like the
Mhm.
men.
Yes.
Um, One of the things too that a lot of the men say, especially if they're dating someone or they're married, even if
Mhm.
they're dating someone or they're married to someone, they still don't have that security
Mhm.
to be vulnerable to their wife or that significant
Yep.
other,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
um, the women have not embraced the mindset that the man has to be strong at all times, and they can't
Right.
show no sense of vulnerability because it's a
Mhm.
form of weakness. And
Mhm.
you know, I've had people who said to me, I asked the question, I said, if your dude, if he's your husband, a guy you dating, and he came to you and he came to you in a moment where he was vulnerable, and let's say he came to you as his wife or girlfriend, and he shared something to you, and in the midst of him sharing, he began
Mhm.
to cry. How
Mhm.
would you react? And the reactions was crazy because they all was like, I would have to leave him
Wow.
because I now don't feel safe because he's crying like a woman.
Mhm.
And so then therefore, if this is what the women are saying, and this is how they're acting, then the man really doesn't have nowhere to go to feel safe. And then there's no really groups or anything like that for them to go to. So what do?
They start round tables like you did. They start round tables so they can talk and process those emotions. Don't hide from the facts and know that there is a a a brotherhood that's out there of positive, strong men who are facing their pains, who are facing issues, whether they stem from childhood or whether they just stem from terrible traumas throughout life. You don't have to hide your hurt and your pain. You can talk about it. And I welcome each and every one of you out there listening to come participate into the roundtable that we're having. We're having a few segments. So you're welcome to come. You're welcome to express. And we wish everyone out there just a happy and healthy 2020. And in order to get there, we kind of have to do what Dr. Brooks has been conveying to us. And basically, we've got to face whatever's going on, overcome the bitterness so we can regain our voice, help someone else while we're also helping ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to what Kevin was saying, um, because that is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
How can you maintain a healthy relationship with that type of gender bias in that relationship? Because that's what that is. That's saying from a supervision, how can I put what I want to say? It goes back to the fact that many times, instead of being grounded in reality and from the lack of seeing relationships, because there's so many single parent households, that we look to TV and movies and celebrities as our examples of what a relationship is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we've got these unrealistic expectations of what we're supposed to be in the relationship. Because that's ludicrous to say that you're going to leave a man that in his vulnerable moment, he starts to cry. That means that he's human. That means that he's reaching out to the person who's supposed to be his partner, his life mate, for support. And so if you can't offer that support, then how do you come back and expect security? Because in some way, shape, or form, this is a superficial relationship. And I will also say, I saw a statistic today that said 60% of the women in Atlanta, and this came out 3 years ago, that by this year would be single. So there's 60% of the women out there with no mate, whether it be male or female, and not in a relationship of any kind. But the 40% that are, how many of those are in dysfunctional relationships? And how many of the 60% are not in a relationship because of the dysfunctional mindsets that they're harboring? So it's a major problem. And the thing is, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And how do we fix it? Because this is what's being taught to our children, which is going to make the problem be compounded as they grow up into adults. And Kevin, like you, I'm having an epiphany, and my journey is taking me somewhere else. I didn't want it to go because God is telling me I need to take care of the kids. And I'm praying that he's not telling me that because the adults are a lost cause at this point. Because I don't want to believe that, because I think too many men and women out there that need help, that want help, but don't know how to get help and don't know how to accept it when it comes. And that's going to take somebody like you, somebody like Lotus, somebody like me that God has equipped to handle it.
And you know, Dr. Brooks, I'm honest with myself. It was put on my spirit to do it a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because when I got coached by Iyanla and her team, it was me and 100+ other men. And I really believe I was selected to do that, not only to try to work on healing myself, but to see, for God to show me where he was going to send me to and what my purpose was at that moment. So once I became a coach, I instantly knew that's one of the things I wanted to help, because I saw the pain that these men were going through. And I know that it's a void out there for the men. And sometimes you allow people to make you change how you see things because of money. Because, come down to coaching, they was like, your clientele is going to be the females, because the females are the ones that's going to pay. But at the end of the day, if you focus on that, then you leave the men high and dry. And so I had to keep on going through the journey, and then I kept on seeing that the men are out there, and the men out there are looking for someone to help them heal. And so, that's when I started doing the round table. Initially, before, it was just like me and two other guys. But now, as I started listening to the Spirit more intensely, he was like, you have to use this platform to reach the masses and to do it in a different way. So that's why I did it the way I did this time with Lotus. So, but it was something that it's been on my spirit for like the past 10 years. But I think I had to go through a certain journey for myself to prepare me for this moment right now.
You did.
Yes. So I want to acknowledge a couple of people right quick, because I know our time is dwindling down, and we've got several people online with us. Larry Pace out of North Carolina says, hi, everybody. God bless you all. Thank you so much, Larry. We appreciate you. And that's Live with Larry. That's the owner of Live with Larry. Hey, Larry, good to see you. Daisy said that Lotus and Kevin, you are the bomb.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
in
Daisy.
New Jersey right now. We appreciate you. And she says, I love you, Lotus and Kevin, y'all the bomb.com. And Larry says, hello, Dr. Brooks. And then we also have, I saw Kanan on here. Kanan Harper says that fear of failure and or rejection. He said that's a big thing that I guess some men face. And he said what you were saying, I think Kevin earlier, what you were saying was so true. Or Angie was saying to Kanan, that's so true. And then the mighty queen herself, the writer for the play Canvas, and her new play that's coming out, Who Killed Pretty Pimpin' Bill. So, watch, because she coming out. Who Killed Pretty Pimpin' Bill? Thank you, the mighty queen. She said, basically, Kevin, you were speaking the truth for sure. And then we have a question or a response from Angie. Angie says, nobody wants to be seen boasting or bragging. And then we have Takako Matsudaira out of Japan. Thank you for being with us tonight. And Kanan Harper, he said, that is the epitome of unconditional love. And I think what he's saying is just loving yourself or being with somebody who just accepts you as you are. And correct me if I'm wrong, because, we get into these a little behind. And then we have a question, and I'm going to pose this question to both of you. This question stems from Angie. She says, how can we teach children about unconditional love or building relationships?
We got to teach children to love themselves as they are, first of all, and then to accept everybody else as they are, because that's what the major problem is. We spend a lot of time talking about other people and what their failures and everything is, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about how them being different from us actually accentuates who we are. And that's basically because really we don't know who we are. We don't know who we are. And we are intimidated when we see somebody being themselves because it looks like they've got it all together, because you don't see everything that they had to go through, the journey that they had to walk to get there. But if everyone would work on themselves as much as they talk about everybody else,
yes,
we will find that our children would be in a much better place. I think that's one of the problems with bullying. Kids bully because of the insecurity that they feel. And sometimes when we're insecure, we strike out before we allow somebody to strike at us, because we don't trust other people. We don't like what we see in ourselves, and we think everybody sees us the way we see ourselves. And that's not true. I deal with that in the pursuit of purpose, that we have blind spots and we have hidden spots, and we got to deal with all those spots and actually work through all of that so that we can come to a place to know. I listened to something today with Dr. Miles Monroe. I love Dr. Monroe. And he said that when we were born, we were complete. That when we came here with purpose. We came here equipped to walk out purpose. We came here complete. And we were a finished product in God. But when we got here, something happened. We started to teach our children. They were perfect when they got here, but then we started to teach them how to fear things. We started to teach them the differences between genders. We started to teach them the differences between races. We started to teach them the difference between rich and poor, and we cloaked it as right and wrong. We cloaked it as societal morals. But what we did was we contaminated something that was already perfected. And so now we've got to learn to uncontaminate our children so that they can grow up into well-adjusted adults who know who they are and what their purpose is.
To piggyback for that, because you were very good with what you said, from my experience, my father, always affirmed to my brother and I that we were a masterpiece as we are, and do not ask for permission to be anything else but who we are. And then from there, I never really see or heard him speak badly of anyone else, because he said if you truly love someone, you love them for who they are and not what you want them to be.
Right.
Right.
And he said that's the true unconditional love. You love the person for who
Right.
they are and not what they want to be. So that's what I tend to do. You know, everybody's not gonna be like me. They might do have beliefs and things that I might not agree with, but if I love them, I have to love them for who they are and not for who I want them to be. And that's what I try to project to the world, to the masses. So,
But let's be honest. I know for myself, the world couldn't handle two of me. So this is the only one you get. Now I've got two sets of grandchildren that are twins. And even though they're twins, they might look alike. But trust me, they are not alike.
right.
They are originals. And I taught my children, be who you are. I don't care who likes it or don't like it. You be who you are. And I just had this conversation with my father yesterday, is I think I taught them too well. Because they got that. They are going to be who they are. They have strong personalities. They're going to say what they're going to say. They could care less if you like it or don't. Take it or leave it. Lotus has met my children.
Yes, and they're awesome too. We have a couple comments from our viewers. So Kamala Robinson is with us tonight. Hey, Kamala, thanks for joining us. She says amazing information and thank you. Kamala is with Euphoria. I'll be doing a Facebook Live with her tomorrow. We're going to be talking about some DNA stuff from Euphoria, and it's for health and wellness. So I challenge you all to watch us on tomorrow. But thanks, Kamala, for joining us. And also, Angie came back with another saying. She says, so we are to learn to love ourselves and trust our light, as Lotus once said. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Great stuff, everybody. Thanks. Great stuff.
So we down to the last 15 minutes. I want to. Do we have one last question before we do our final thoughts? Or do you have a question for us, Lotus, before we do our final
I
thoughts?
do. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Because you guys have hit this topic, how to get over bitterness and how to regain our voice, but you guys also went deep with it when you talked about people just not being able to overcome because they get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
They get stuck in not being appreciative of themselves. They get stuck in old baggage that they're carrying from one relationship to another. And they don't know how to move on and how to process. You guys also talked about doing another roundtable so the men can process. We talked about doing a roundtable so the women can process. And I keep getting people asking me when the women's roundtable is coming. Just know it's coming. I'm already pulling some ladies together that are powerful and dynamic that's going to help us out here. So you guys have covered so many things except one thing.
What's that?
What's that? I was waiting for that question. The one thing that you haven't covered is how do those of us who are hurt and still carrying this bitterness and haven't found our voice, but it's due to being a part of the church. The very place that we go to for worship is the very place that has hurt us. So how do we overcome that?
Dr. Bruce, you can go first.
And just let me say, Dr. Brooks, that was something that came out of the round table.
I know
Mr. Banks talked about
I know
that.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
And a couple of other guys talked about.
And I think I know Mr. Page said something, and also
Yes.
Remy said something.
Yes.
And
yeah,
I
that's why I said
remember
a couple other guys.
And
right.
I remember, I think I was sitting next to you, and I think at that time when we started talking about that, I think Dr. Brooks typed in something
Yes, she did.
saying
Hmm.
the conversation has now begun, and that.
Yes.
And the crazy part about Dr. Brooks was when I talked to one of the guys today,
Hmm.
he was saying that a young lady was watching the show at the same time, and she said the same thing Dr. Brooks said. Now the show has really begun, and she
Yep.
said she got so upset that as it got to get real juicy, as she said, it was time for us to shut it down. She was like, "So we have to. They want us to make sure we circle back to that because you could tell from Mr. Page and Remy and even Al
Thanks.
that Banks,
Yep.
yep, that they were going through a hard time dealing with that and how they and reconciling with that in their everyday being. So, Dr. Bruce, what you think? How can they do? How can they reconcile and release the hurt feelings that they receive from the church?
You know, that could be a show all within itself.
Uh huh.
Um, One of the things, having been a person that was hurt by the church, is that you have to understand that church and God are not synonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, we take it to be that. We also have to realize that whoever it is that stands at the pulpit or stands in leadership of that church is human and subject to fail, or subject to be in error. When you get to those two places, then that leaves you to where do you go? And that goes back having that relationship with God or your higher power. That there has to be a personal relationship. There has to be a personal relationship. When I was pastoring, one of the things that I would tell people was just those very things. I'm human, so I can be wrong. But when you hear what I have to say, I need you to write notes, but I also need you to go back and study it out. I need you to study it for yourself. It says study to show yourself approved. It didn't say study to show me approved. The study to show yourself approved. Go back and see if what was told to you or what was taught to you is actually true for you. And I'm saying true for you because this is something else that I deal with in the book is that my journey, my salvation is not yours. It is tailor made for you, it's tailor made for your journey. That's why it's so important to know who you are and what your destiny is. Because I may be a person that whatever my destiny is for God, I can't drink alcohol. But the Bible doesn't specifically say that alcohol drinking is a sin. It said don't be drunk with it. Handle it in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to be able in churches to say to chew up the meat and spit out the bone. But I can't do that if I don't know the difference between the meat and the bone. So a lot of church hurt is out of ignorance on both ends. It's out of the ignorance of the people who have been in church for so long that they think that the way that they do it is the only way that it has to be done and that that's the gospel and it came from God himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the responsibility of the person that's receiving that because everything somebody dishes out, even in the church, you don't have to take.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to take it to be gospel for you. The word says that you have to work out your own soul salvation with fear and trembling. That's telling me that you got to work out your own.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, Lord, I'm going to get discommunicated, but sometimes you might have to disassociate yourself because you might not be in the right congregation. You might not be in the right church for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have got to, and this is a bad word, and this is what this whole conversation comes to. It's called forgiveness. Forgive those that hurt you and forgive yourself for allowing yourself to be hurt. Because what we have to come to realize is that all of us are human, and all of us do right things and all of us do wrong things. Sometimes we do it with the best of intentions and sometimes we don't. If I've hurt somebody, then how can I hold it against you when you've hurt me? But if I want to save me and I want to be the best me possible, then I have to learn to forgive you. Does that mean I have to be around you? Does that mean I have to accept you in my inner circle? No, it does not. I don't have to speak to you ever again in this life as long as I forgave you and I let it go. And that's a bad word in the church because we don't like forgiveness. Because often we're called to forgive things that we know were done intentionally to us. But the word also says that we are to be wise as serpents. And a serpent is very cunning, he's very smart, he's very wise. We have to take it all in its totality. And that comes from understanding. And that's something we don't have, whether it's of us, of the word, of the world, or anything. We have to come to a place where we understand. And that comes from educating ourselves.
So is that why we've heard it said so many times, don't seek so much to be understood, rather seek to understand?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe because once we understand and we educate ourselves, like you said, we can make an educated decision and make the best choice for our individual lives.
And see, one of the things that when I teach and I tell people, it's one thing for me to teach you and you memorize what I taught. But it is a deeper level of learning if you understand what I taught. Mm-hmm. Because if you understand it, you can take it and you can use it. But if you don't understand it, it's just meaningless words that you've memorized.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes.
So, as we come to a close, I'm going to let Dr. Brooks, because she don't say a lot, so I'm going to give her a minute. Lotus, I want you to give your parting words, and then I'm going to let Dr. Brooks give her parting shots.
To our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, we love and appreciate you. Welcome to 2020, and I hope it's your best year yet. Remember what I talked about earlier. Make sure you always be yourself. We've talked about this a couple of times tonight. Be yourself, because when you be yourself, you can dream big and you can do your best. Now, be aware that Kevin and I are life coaches, and we do accept new clients, and we are accepting new clients currently. And you can reach me at Lotus Riche Ignites Life Coaching and Consulting at www.lotusricheignites.com. You can also call me at 1-800-593-9733. Also, watch me on YouTube. I have great new videos coming up. I've got my website under construction right now. It's up, but we're revamping some things to help you come on and watch us on our blogs and things of that nature. So make sure you stay with us. And most importantly, meet us right here on Facebook, Roku, Twitter, and YouTube, where we are here live every Monday from 7 to 9 Eastern Standard Time on the Kevin Thornton Wellness Architect Show, bringing inspiration to every nation, because we love helping you ignite and take flight. So
I'm gonna let
make sure you're here on Monday nights.
I'm gonna let Dr. Brooks go last. I'm gonna say something real quick. Like Lotus said, I want to say thank you to everyone who has been with us for the past 3 years, and Happy New Year to you guys. You know, our intentions for 2020 is to really elevate what we're doing and what we're teaching everyone, so they can ultimately create the best year ever, mind, body, and spirit. Like Lois said, we both are life coaches and health coaches, so we are accepting new clients at this moment. So you can hit me on all my social medias, Kevin Thornton on Facebook, also the Wellness Architect on Facebook, the Wellness Architect on Instagram, and Kevin Thornton on LinkedIn. Reach out to me, inbox me, and I greatly appreciate any new clients for either life coaching and or health coaching. I am offering a 12-week transformation coaching. The transformation will be health and life coaching. So it's going to be the total transformation of mind, body, and spirit. So if you're interested in that, or you know anybody who might need that, have them reach out to me as well. With that being said, we have a lot of great things going on for 2020 that we're going to do, things that we're working on. I'm about to confirm a date where I'm going to do a cardio hit class here in Atlanta with DJ Bostic of Body by Bostic. So those of you are in the Atlanta area and you're trying to get your health correct in 2020, stay tuned for that. We'll let you know the date and everything like that. I'm actually working on doing some stuff in Cleveland and also Detroit. We're going to reach out to the men in those areas and have some conversations. One of my buddies is an alpha, so he's going to reach out to his alpha buddies. And I have friends that are Qs in Cleveland, so we're going to have them come together. And I think we're going to have a conversation that the initial question is fraternities relevant now in 2020 compared to how it was back in the early days? And if so, how can they be an impact to the men in the society we are in today? So stay tuned for all that. We'll keep you posted what's all going on. But I wanted our special guest, Dr. Brooks, to bless us with the final word and take us out. Dr.
Hey,
Brooks.
Kevin, one quick thing. We got one person. They want to know how can they support the channel. They want to know how can we support the channel each week through contributions.
Oh, that's nice. They email me and I'll give them the information. So you can email me at Kevin T is in time 211 at hotmail.com, and I will give them the information what they could do to bless us with any contribution that they give us. And those who are that nice enough to do that, I will send them a signed copy of my book, so to show my gratitude. So those who do that, reach out to me, and I'll give you the information, and then give me your address. And with the contribution that you give to us, I will send you a book to show you my gratitude.
Okay.
So, Dr. Brooks, can you bless us with the last part?
And before I bless you with the last part, I have a brother that is a Kappa in Cleveland.
What?
Pass that on so that you can have yet another fraternity in the house when you have that one.
All right.
Oh, in my closing, one of the things that I will say to everybody is to stop walking around every day trying to be somebody other than you, or being somebody that you don't know. We've talked now for 2 hours about bitterness and about reconciling yourself to your history. We've talked about having the Holy Spirit to search you. Please do that. If you need help, I got a book. It's called The Pursuit of Purpose. And I will put the information in the comments as to how to get the book. Prayerfully in February, the companion book will come out called Pathways to Purpose. And that book will show you how to walk out the pursuit of purpose. I would also tell you to join me in my group Pathways to Purpose on Facebook every Wednesday at 5:30, where we talk about different strategies and different things as far as walking out your purpose, where we will be having special guests to come in and also talk about purpose. But the best thing is to find out who you are and just be the best you that you can be. That's what the world is waiting on. That's what the world needs. That's what you need. and you'll find out that life will be so much better. So much better. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brooks. It's been a pleasure as
Quite welcome.
always. When your book, when the companion book come out, please let Lotus know so we could schedule you to come back on the show so we could discuss that companion book and how
All
it
right.
goes in alignment and action with your current book because we want to support you because you bring out a lot of great knowledge and discernment to what we're trying to do. So we greatly appreciate you and we want to support you in any kind of way that we possibly can. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in to the Wellness Architect Show with my lovely co-host Lotus Riche. Hope to see you for next week. And while you're doing that, be blessed, be your authentic self, be genuine, and we are out. Peace.
Good night.
Good night.